score for the Ravens Buffalo Bills game, you could do that.
The prediction, what, the Ravens Buffalo Bills game?
Yeah.
Uh, well, Mark Medin could help me with that. Let's let me see. It's going to be 7, 14, 21, 27 to 17.
I can live
Ravens, of
with that.
course.
I can live with
Okay.
that.
27-17.
27-17 Ravens. Okay. I know that certainly sounds good to all the Baltimore folk. That something, but the games are not scheduled. I don't think the game has been scheduled yet, so we don't know which day of the
No,
week it's on.
no.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Sunday afternoon.
Is that the MS mark?
Yeah,
That's fine?
Sunday. No, they're playing Sunday afternoon against Buffalo.
Okay. All right. Great to know. Thank you.
I won't be in school that night.
As they say, manishtana halayla. Okay, so Paul, just thinking about Alex Cooper Auctioneers, and it's a family business through the generations of the family. One of these kind of classic Baltimore businesses, great respect in the community, uh, and the fact that you're celebrating 100 years of being in business to me is really astonishing.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering how you feel about it. And also, can you just lay a little bit of a timeline out for us, a little bit of a history? How did you get to 100 years?
That's a good question. How much time do we have?
Right.
An hour? Okay. This will be the first of 10 episodes, each an hour long. So no, let me just start by saying my grandfather and his family came in here to the United States, to Baltimore, from a little town called Ledichev in the central part of Ukraine. Um, Unfortunately, they had to leave because they were not that hospitable for Jews in that town. So the Ukrainians were the reason that the Coopers landed here. We used to be called the Kupsovs. It was my great grandfather's name was Joseph, and my great grandmother's name was Bella. Joseph and Bella Kupsov, who came here back in the early around 1911, 1912. My grandfather was born in 1902. So when he got here, he was, basically a 10-year-old boy. I think he had three brothers, probably four or five sisters. He had a lot of, it was a large family. And fortunately, that we could, my great great grandfather could afford to send a lot of the family members over. And which, by the way, the singer side of our family includes the Janowskis, the Chapins, and a lot of other people who I went to school with, but I never realized were my cousins.
Right.
So it's interesting how large a family gets. But anyway, um, my great grandfather Joseph Kupsov passed away in 1916, and so at that point, then there was just my great grandmother as a widow who needed to be supported. So of course the kids had to work. I don't think my grandfather had much of an education. I really don't. I just think he was more devoted to working. And so, around 22 years old, he started, I guess he saw an opportunity and got into the auctioneering business at that point. So
Hmm.
that's really when it all started back in 1924 when he was about 22 years old. We have photos of him from the 1940s, actually the 1930s doing auctions, the 1940s. We have some photos that we'll share with you from the 1950s of him auctioning, my grandfather. But my grandfather passed away in 1971, April 29th, 1971, leaving the business to my father, who was the only son, and his two sisters were also. He has two sisters. But anyway, it was my father who took over the business at that time back in 1971. And then his two nephews joined the company at that point. And my two brothers and I joined as we graduated school in the late 70s and early 80s. So
So,
that's basically, when it all started. Just give you the brief background.
right on one foot, as they say. So your
Mhm.
dad, so your dad was a young man when he took over the business. He
Yeah,
was,
quick math, he would have been around less about 39 years old at the time
yeah.
when he had to take over
Wow.
the business. It was a lot of responsibility for him. Uh, at that point, we were at 212 North Calvert Street, 212 North Calvert Street, which was a block away
Downtown.
from the courthouse. And right now it's basically it's the garage for Mercy Hospital that you get to on the Calvert Street side. So that's where
I
that's
know
where our office
exactly. I
used to
parked in
be.
that garage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's I was very familiar with that. Spent many a Saturdays of my youth at that location, which we moved from in 1972. No, maybe it was 71. Right after my grandfather died, he wasn't around to see the fact that we bought 345 North Charles Street, which was over next to Mulberry, and we bought that property and moved into there for 10 years. So really, it started, if you go all the way back, it's 409 North Howard Street, if you go all the way back.
Wow.
So we moved our way up, Howard to Calvert to Charles, and then to Towson. Towson, we moved in 1982.
So
So
you've
over
been
the
at the
years,
Taos
we keep
location since
growing.
'82.
Yeah,
That's
and that was
already
a
a long
very good move.
So that would be the longest tenured place that the business has been
Yes, correct,
in the Towson location.
correct.
So tell me, I don't, I know a little bit about the business, not that much. I know that you work with a wide variety of things. So I know real estate, I know jewelry. Your dad and mom sent me a catalog of one of the auctions, and it had like rock and roll posters and some
From the
Grateful
Grateful
Dead
Dead, correct.
memorabilia. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What are the different divisions and how does it all work together and some information about that.
So there's right now there's three divisions. We have the foreclosure side of the business, which I basically run the foreclosure side of the business, the mortgage foreclosure side, which is a lot of residential, a lot of commercial. I mean, for example, recently, one of the larger commercial foreclosures we did was of what was called the old post office in DC, which was Trump's hotel that he had sold, that was turned into the Waldorf Astoria. And the Waldorf Astoria was the one who lost the building.
Hmm.
But for example, that was a recent foreclosure. We did L'Enfant Plaza back in July or August, which is a pretty large complex. So we've done a lot of large. I've had Union Station, believe it or not, Union Station. There was a leasehold interest in Union Station owned by the Ashkenazi group, and that went to foreclosure, but that never went to sale. But it's amazing. I really enjoy some of these larger properties that I participate in handling the foreclosures of. Over the years, we did Lord Baltimore Hotel, did the Belvedere Hotel, the brokerage, a lot of interesting properties throughout the years. I've
Amazing.
hit the
Amazing.
foreclosure.
Now
Yeah, so
why does
that's
why
one
does one
side of the. Yeah.
why do they so let's take the Belvedere. Okay. They need to deal with that process, and why is it Alex Cooper that they call? How does that happen? Is it reputation? Is it
I mean, it's reputation of handling. We have such a prior history of handling large commercial foreclosure sales.
right,
I should add the Bethlehem Steel Shipyards, which is now Harborview. I mean, that whole when we did the Bethlehem Steel Shipyards, that was back in the 1980s. We did that whole property there, but it's just the fact that we have a history of dealing with larger properties, and we know how they're done properly. When you do that many complex large foreclosures, you get a reputation, and people come to you, and that's why
yeah.
I get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, that's astonishing to me. Amazing. What
Yeah, so
about
the
other
foreclosure side is a big part of it. Yeah.
what about other divisions within the other two in the company?
Okay, so the fine arts, what I call the fine arts division. So the fine arts division would be furniture, silver, jewelry, paintings, and just whatever comes in the door. I mean, really, it's just we have a lot of interesting things have come in the door. And again, it's just a matter of that we've grown the business. We have utilized and embraced technology in the marketing process. And basically, I feel like we're now a technology company. So instead of having these large gallery sales where you get 100 to 200 people in your gallery, you get 5 people. And then you get 400, 500 people from around the world online
Right.
participating. So that's a fascinating part of our business.
When did that change really start to take effect?
Which well, when you say the change to
When you move more to like an online auction model.
so probably in 2017, we built out our technology platform in 2017, and that was a big part of it. So we started doing online auctions for real estate, and we started doing online auctions for the fine arts division.
Okay.
But then, of course, when COVID hit, we didn't have much choice.
Right.
There was no choice at that point. So when COVID came about, then we went basically 90% online.
Yeah.
But we found that the participation levels were tremendous. It was just fascinating. The people that I'm, like I'm approving people to participate in our fine art auctions, they're from around the world.
Right.
Uh, and we never had that reach before we were online. So it was really 2020 was the change. And we're not, obviously we're not going back because it's been very successful being an online, auctioneer for real estate and for fine art. Now you can't do it with foreclosure sales. We can advertise the foreclosures online. You can't conduct the foreclosure. It has to be in person. So when I come back to Baltimore, that's what I'm doing is going to the various courthouses and conducting the foreclosure sales in person.
Okay.
So that's a little behind the times, but one day it may change. We'll see. We're not
So
there
then what's
yet.
the third division? Is it's the real estate?
Well, the third division is what I would call real estate, but voluntary sales of real estate. For
Okay, as
example,
opposed to
like Mark
foreclosure.
Medden, who's on the Zoom here, he would give me a client, refer a client to me who has an investment property, or somebody has a shopping center or an apartment building, or their own home. They've tried to sell their home, they couldn't sell it, and they're tired of waiting, and maybe it's mispriced, but then we put it up at auction and we see what we can do. So it's a voluntary real estate sales that are strictly online as opposed to the involuntary sales, which are the foreclosure side. So you
Right.
got foreclosures, real estate, fine art.
Tell us a little bit about the process of how an auction comes together. So, how do you decide when an auction is going to be? How are the materials assembled? Are the items for that particular auction? How does that whole process work?
Well, I guess we're talking what, the fine art auction?
Yeah, tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's a fine art auction. So it's sales. We have the gallery sales are scheduled every 5 weeks. We call it a gallery sale. It's a 2 day session. But the fact of the matter is, the gallery sale consists of 5 people who come in the gallery. The rest
Right.
are online. But every 5 weeks, we conduct a sale. Then we have strictly online sales that are not gallery sales, and they're done maybe twice a month in addition to the gallery sales. So they're regularly scheduled sales. And I have a team of was it 25, 30 people who work in the fine art division. It's a large group. Um, and it's all hands-on. I mean, when I say hands-on, you gotta look at the piece, you gotta photograph it, you gotta move it, you gotta set it up. We have to be able to when we sell it, we have to be able to, give it to somebody, know where it is to give it to somebody. So it's a very involved process,
And you have
which
to
which takes a
also,
while.
yeah, and also you have to have people who are knowledgeable about the objects, right? I mean, someone has to know, hey, this should go for such and such an amount, or is that done by research? How is that worked out?
Combination. We have a lot of experts. We have a couple who are painting experts. We have two or three who are jewelry experts, one of whom is a silver expert.
Hmm.
We have someone who's an expert in, like the small items, the porcelains and, the small types of items. So, yeah, we have a number of experts. We have a coin. We do a lot of coins. So we have a coin expert also. Um, there's a lot of people on the payroll. Let's put it that way. Number of people that work.
So some of the experts are full time with you guys. That's it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
correct.
What is the term for coin? Is it numismatics? Is that coins?
Yeah, numismatic, yes.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from. Somewhere tucked away in the back of my brain. Jeez.
Some Latin derivation, I'm sure.
Right.
Okay.
So you've been working in the company how many years?
I started in 1979.
Wow.
Too many.
So
45, 46, whatever.
it's a lot. It's a good chunk of time. So scroll back and think through and maybe tell us about some of the more unusual items, the more interesting, uh, foreclosures, buildings, just some of those things that really kind of stick out in your mind.
Well, I'm a history buff. So what sticks out of my mind are more related to the fine art auction division. So, for example, this was probably, I don't know, 20 years ago. Somebody from Pikesville says that their father had found what is called a field marshal baton, baton, field marshal baton. So the Germans in World War II, the field marshals would have batons. It's something they would hold. It's basically a cylinder, about this long, maybe, like that. It is gold felt, images of swastikas and Hindenburg crosses all over it. So somebody from Pikesville called us up and said their father had found this at the end of World War II at a villa, and he wasn't sure if it was real or what. So, but we're not even sure if it's real or what because you get people have stories. All right, so we check it out, and we come to find out that it was originally owned by Field Marshal Kesselring, Albert Kesselring, who was in the Luftwaffe.
Yeah.
So he wasn't part of the final solution. He was a professional soldier in their Air Force. The Luftwaffe was their Air Force. As a matter of fact, I think the British imprisoned him after the war, and they released him, I think, like in 1952 or 53. But regardless, so it ended up to be Field Marshal Kesselring's baton. Again, we're not sure, is it real or is it not? We had two people who were very interested, one from Germany, one from Ohio, an investor from Ohio, a collector from Ohio, I should say. The person from Germany, apparently behind our back, knows the person from Ohio and told the person from Ohio it's a fake. Don't bother even looking at it. It's a fake.
Wow.
Ultimately, of course, who's bidding on it? The person from Germany and the person from Ohio. It ends up selling for, it was over like $600,000 or $700,000.
Wow. Wow.
So, but our policy has been, except for field marshal batons, not to sell Nazi memorabilia. I don't want that type of items, those type of items. I don't want daggers. I don't want flags. I don't want armbands and those types of things in our gallery. I just don't feel it's appropriate. And so we've stopped accepting a lot of that. But if it's a field marshal baton worth 700,000, what am I going to say?
Just along, are there auctioneer companies that deal specifically with that kind of memorabilia? Like,
Yeah. Yes. Let them deal with it. I'd rather not.
yep.
So other interesting things we've had. We've also had, for example, so we got a bunch of scrapbooks from an estate. We were looking in the scrapbooks, and my associate says, "Look, I found a 4-page letter from George Washington to Brian Fairfax,
Wow.
as in Fairfax, Virginia." And you say, "Well, how do you authenticate that?" Well, if you go online with the Library of Congress, they have all their correspondence between Brian Fairfax and George Washington, with the exception, of course, of this letter. So you see the correspondence from Brian Fairfax to George Washington. You see the subsequent of Brian Fairfax to George Washington. You just don't see the letter from Washington to Fairfax,
Wow.
which fit right into that, like a jigsaw puzzle. So I would say it goes to our honesty, because guess what? The seller never knew they had it. They never knew they even had that in their scrapbook.
Wow.
But that we sold to obviously a collector. And so the things of historical nature, I'm always fascinated by. We had a couple letters from J.P. Custis. J.P. Custis was Martha Custis's son. Martha Custis Washington had 2 children, son and daughter. And I believe George Washington adopted both of them because they didn't have their own children. Martha and George didn't have their own children. So they adopted JP and his sister. JP ended up having 7 children, but died at the age of 26. But these were letters to George Washington from JP Custis talking about the purchase of some land on an installment basis. And George Washington had disagreed with him about what he was paying for it. But that land is now National Airport. So that's because they bought the land along the Potomac. Of course, the Arlington Cemetery was the Custis estate. Robert E. Lee was a Custis. So it's just interesting when you get connections with history and people talking about buying historical sites like that. But it's the historical documents, the Abraham Lincoln signed documents, the George Washington documents that fascinate me the most.
Amazing. Those stories are really astonishing, actually. What did it's kind of like there's that show, of course, on PBS. I don't remember what it's called. Antiques Roadshow, I guess.
Right.
So when you called that family and said, this is a letter from George Washington, what did they say?
They're thrilled. I mean, it's like, really? Where? Okay.
Exactly.
Sometimes people don't know what they have. It just gets lost. Somebody dies. It's in a scrapbook. It's in a box, and people just don't know.
Right. Right. You have to wonder, over the years, how many things have just been thrown out. I'm sure things that were, important, historical, valuable, and people just never took the time.
Which reminds me of another story. So we get a call from someone who says, I have books and linens to sell. And I'm like, what do you got? What do you mean? Like bed linens? What do you got? You got like paperbacks? What is it? Okay. So, all right, come on in. So they come in and we have basically about 4 or 5 volumes that were originally owned by Thomas Jefferson.
Wow.
That were in the possession of his daughter. His daughter basically took possession of those particular books out of his library. The rest of his library was the basis for Library of Congress. He sold his collection of books to the Library of Congress. These books were dated, I believe, 1785 when he was serving in France as an ambassador or whatever in France, Thomas Jefferson. But these were some of the books that he bought, that he brought back from France, and that his daughter took into her possession. And of course, we said to the people, like, where did you find these books? You're not the family. You said somebody gave you these books. Really? Would they fall off the back of a truck or something? What happened here? And apparently somebody was throwing out an estate. They were throwing out the contents of an estate and included some linens and included some old books. And these people, I think, work for that family. And the old books end up being sold to, what was it? Monticello, I think, might have bought those books. Yeah, Monticello bought the books. Yes, that's who bought them.
Wow.
So that's where they're at right now. They went back to where they started.
Also amazing. What about the linens? What were the linens?
Old Irish linens from the turn of the century, 18th century linens that were very, very valuable.
They were valuable. Wow.
Oh, yeah, very valuable. Yeah. Old Irish. Yeah. So I think the collection might have brought like $50,000, but here you get a call, I want to sell books and linens. And you're like, but you never know.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
That's why you got to look,
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about, actually a fair amount about how technology has changed what you're able to do. Where do you see the industry going in the future? Is it going to become exclusively an online enterprise? Just where do you see it going?
Exclusively online. There's no question about it. Artificial intelligence is going to change a lot. I don't think it's going to be as tedious as what we go through right now to list and research items. Because right now you can take a picture of something using, like one of the Google apps. It'll identify it for you.
Right.
It'll give you the whole background. You don't have to sit there and try to figure out, what is this vase I'm selling? Take a picture of it, and a half a dozen pictures of similar vases come up on the screen. You click on one, and it tells you, oh, here's what it is. It's a 19th century German vase. So, or 19th century Meissen or whatever, French Limoges. So that's where it's going to go as far as technology and artificial intelligence. It'll make our job much easier and less research involved.
So in other words, the AI will just do that. You'll be able to put the piece in front of the computer camera, snap a picture, and then AI just feeds it out for you. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So basically, it'll make things that does it's not manual anymore. It's automatic. Take a picture, put it into a program. Right now, what I do is when I'm writing letters or I'm writing descriptions, I put it into Chat GPT or to Gemini, which I think is what Google uses, and oh, it comes up with a great description. Okay, so and edits my letters. So that's what the technology is going to happen. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I mean, we're seeing that in the synagogue world as well, where, a million examples. If you want to write a course description, if you want to write a little blurb for the weekly Torah portion, and it's going to be printed in the temple bulletin, Chat GBT, can give it a couple pieces of information, and it spits out a very nice little paragraph for you. Um,
Yeah, you're going to do eulogies with that also. Don't forget that.
I haven't done that, but I can see a time would come
Right.
when some folks might do it. And evidently, I've been told, I don't know if this is true, I haven't really played around with it that much, but I've been told that over time, if you're using a more sophisticated AI software, that it can really sort of adjust to your style, get a sense of
Hmm.
use language. So, yeah, the time may come. I'll probably be out of the business at that point, but
Okay.
it's on the horizon. I can see that.
Right.
What about for Alex Cooper? Your dad's I can't work forever, or what's the path they're going to be moving forward?
Something. Well, the family members in the business right now consists of two brothers, Larry and Brian, who are still in the business, still working it, even though we're all in our late 60s. Uh, my father's 90 years old. He still enjoys the business, and observing what's going on. So he's certainly, he's during the summertime, you'll find him in his office. When he's not in Florida, he'll be in his office. You'll find him there most days of the week. I have my nephew Matthew, and Matthew is what 41, 42. So Matthew and his sister Carly are basically the future of the business, but we've also gotten outside experts into the business, knowing that we're not going to be participating as much as we used to. So I hired Mark and Sarah Lee's son-in-law, David Platt. David's been working for me for the past 8 months, and he has a key job. He's one of the principals, in the administrative part of the business, helping to manage things day to day, and he's done a fabulous job. That's Jeff and Pam Platt's son I'm talking about. If for those who know Jeff and Pam, yeah. So yeah, that's for example, someone like him. And those are, the outside people like that are going to help basically manage the business on a day-to-day basis because we're just not, when I say not, we're still there to give advice and to do what we're going to do and provide expertise, but it's that day-to-day management which, can get very tedious.
Yep, sure, for sure, for sure. But it's great that you have that kind of plan in place, and you bring the younger people in. I mean, it has to happen in every business. It has to happen in the synagogue business and every business. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's and Matthew and Carly are my brother Larry's kids who are in the
Right,
business.
right, great. That's great. And it really is, like just to hear you say it, Paul, it's just Lador Vador. It really is. It's beautiful like that.
Exactly.
I want to go to a couple chat questions, and then we'll shift a little bit and talk about kind of the Jewish piece of this conversation and a little bit about Bethel and just your family's involvement in the community over the years. But a couple questions from the chat. Um, so somebody, Patty, asked about in terms of the auctions that are online. Can anyone watch those, or do you have to have a special sort of admission to be able to participate in the auction when it's online? How does that work?
Anyone can watch an online auction. You don't have to register to watch an online auction. You only have to register to bid on an online auction.
Okay.
And that would require, if you haven't been pre-approved and it's your first time, yes, we would have to approve you. There's a lot of fraud out there. So I need to make sure that it's you at that address, at that phone number, and it's legit. You haven't stolen somebody's credit card. So yes, that's anyone can watch, but participating, we would have to pre-approve you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that whole fraud thing, that's the downside of the technology piece, right?
Correct.
Someone asked Carol Sandler. I think it's actually a really interesting question. Did you know always that you were going to go into the business, or was there ever a time when you thought, I might go be a rabbi or something like that?
So I guess I would say yes. I mean, since I was 5 years old, I was going in on Saturdays. I got paid $1 for going in every Saturday. This was at 212 North Calvert Street. My other reward was there was a Coke machine for 10 cents with one of those turn crank things. You put the dime in, you crank, the bottle of Coke comes out. And that's what also was my reward for my Pavlovian dog reward for coming into work. I worked it all my life. I'm not saying it was a good thing. My friends were at camp. Where was Paul? Working. Okay. So it was a natural progression that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from when I was in elementary school, when I was in middle school, when I was in high school. I enjoyed it. So yes, it was a natural progression.
Literally like in your blood, literally in your blood.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Patty also asked about the George Washington letter, and would it have gone back into the Library of Congress, or how?
They have a copy of it. They have a copy of the verbiage that was in there.
Okay.
They won't have the letter. They would just have a copy of it to add to their archives.
There's a letter
Yeah.
who purchased it.
Right.
Yeah. But now because they have the text, that sort of chain of information has been completed.
Correct. Yes.
And then one last question, Freda, who is also down in Florida. I don't know if she's near where you are, Paul, or not, but she says it's going to be 80 degrees tomorrow. Thanks a lot, Freda. Then, so as she says, if an item doesn't sell, do you give it back to the family? What happens to it when you don't sell an item?
It depends. Now, if it's your 5-piece sterling silver Steve, tea set, and it doesn't say, yeah, we'll give it back to the family. You don't want me to donate it. If it was a ottoman that had a torn cover on it or something like that, torn fabric, yeah, we'll donate it or do something else with it. So it's up to the consignor what to do with it. Valuable things go back to the people, obviously. Things that are not valuable and that you have no use for, can be donated, and you get the credit for that.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay. So let's shift a little bit and tell us how did the Cooper family get over to Bethel, and we've been so grateful to have you as part of the congregational community, but fairly recent in terms of the congregation's history.
I think we've probably been there, 25, 30 years?
Yeah, I'm thinking 25 probably.
So I think my family probably started it because everybody in our neighborhood was going to Bethel, the Hebrew school. So we're like, and they were having good experiences at the Hebrew school. So that was really the draw. So we joined. I mean, I grew up at Baltimore Hebrew. My wife grew up at Baltimore Hebrew. So I was during the days of, Cantor Rosenfeld and Rabbi Lieberman, and Rabbi Bliefeld married us. So, but that's where we grew up. But so it was about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago that we went over to Bethel, and we've certainly been very, very happy since then. And then my family followed us from that point, my parents, my brothers. So that's basically the progression. We felt more at home at Bethel.
That's yeah, well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And as I said, we've been grateful to have your family as part of the congregational community over the years and very involved. Um, one of the families that we know always feels connected, and we always feel that we can reach out and always connected. And we traveled to Israel. When was that? How long ago?
Was that '06? I know Jerry Janowski's parents were on that trip.
Gosh, that's right. That's right.
I think Rob Cohn's parents were on that trip.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I think it
We
would
went
make
up.
that's
I know. Remember going up Masada.
yeah.
Uh, and yeah, no, that was we went with the whole family. That was great. I mean, that was a wonderful, wonderful experience to share that trip with my whole family. That was
Amazing.
just, amazing.
You believe that's almost 20 years ago. That's amazing. That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
believe it. I have to get back to Israel. I really have. I hate to say, but I haven't been back in a long time, and I really need to make that trip back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just sort of as a side note, I would encourage anyone to go if you have the time and the opportunity and the ability, go to Israel. They need us to travel there now.
Hmm.
We had an amazing group that we took. That's already, gosh, it's going to be more than half a year ago at this point. But if you can, please go. Please go. It's so deeply appreciated by Israelis right now.
Hmm.
Um, talk a little bit about how the Cooper family, has been involved in Jewish community in Baltimore over the years.
Well, certainly, I mean, all the credit goes to my father, who, and I'm trying to go back to the very beginning, and I think it had to do with the fact that we had belonged to Woodhome Country Club. My parents are still there, and I think he was asked to make sure that everybody gave their annual contributions. And I think that's where it all started. And at that point, he became very involved. He became involved with Israel Bonds. He became involved, especially with Associated. He was head of the campaign at one period of time. Um, and he was always involved in giving to the campaign continually for, I don't know, I mean, it's literally decades. It's been decades. So it started back, they got him involved and he got hooked and it's just he certainly enjoyed the involvement. I remember going with him on a national mission in 1988 to Poland. We went to Israel, we went to Poland, we went to Krakow, we went to it was that was amazing. So it was, that's how far. I mean, it goes back to the '80s. There's no question about it. That's how far back his involvement goes.
That mission that you went on, was that through the Federation? Was it associated? Do you remember?
No, that was national.
Okay.
Actually, Liv Ullman, the actress Liv Ullman, was on that trip.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, a member of the Fisher family, from Fisher Auto Body from Detroit. I forgot who it was. I mean, it goes back, almost 40 years ago. But yeah, remember they were also on that trip. Somebody from that family in Detroit. So it was a lot of national people were on that trip. I believe it was Yitzhak Shamir. I think we had seen that we met with him.
Very possible.
If
Yeah.
that if he would have been in the late '80s.
Yes, the timing works out for that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, going to Knesset, we had tremendous access. Abba Eban, I remember, spoke to our group,
Wow.
and he was so eloquent. I mean, what a speaker. To hear him is just, he talked about the fact that I think India wanted to give Israel an elephant, in honor of them becoming a state or something. He was telling us some type of story like that. And of course, they didn't want an elephant. And he says, like, I appreciate it, but we didn't accept gifts that eat. Okay. So that was, I believe, his reply.
Very Israeli, right? Very Israeli.
Yeah.
Have you felt an impact, over the years as a business and growing a business that is known as a Jewish business?
You know, it's a tough thing. And I'll tell you why. My buyers. My buyers are named Mohammed, Ahmed. uh, they're they're from the Middle East. They're Muslim. They're Sikh. They're from all the countries. Yeah, I mean, we have the United Nations who buy from us especially in the real estate side of the business. I mean, it's the United Nations. So a lot of Iranians are my customers, Muslims especially. I just, to be frank with you, I don't discuss it. They don't discuss their religion. They don't discuss where they come from. I don't ask them. I don't discuss my background with them.
Right.
I mean, that's just, it's just being respectful. We're respectful to each other. We all get along. They're great people to work with, but I just keep politics out of it. I keep
Yep.
religion out of it.
Business
I just discuss, it's just business. It's not personal, it's just business.
Yep. So believe it or not, it's getting kind of close to the witching hour, but one more question for you, Paul, and then we'll have a couple of minutes if anyone else has questions they want to ask via the chat. And I just ask you, as we're kind of getting ready to wrap up, what do looking back on all these years, what do you feel proud of about the business? What is it that, you look back, you say, we really have done this well, we've done it right. What are some of those things?
Well, that probably describes it. It's just you provide a service. Somebody asks you, can you sell this for me? Can you monetize it? And you're providing a service for them and you're successful at doing it.
Right.
And that, it's not the money part. It's just the fact that you provided a service, you were successful. It means a lot to your clients. It means a lot to the customers also, but especially means a lot to the clients.
I was going to say it's both ways. It's the folks
Both ways, yeah.
item that they want to be able to sell, but I'm sure those items are important to people and it means something to them that they're handled with dignity, like Cooper does. And then for the person who's purchasing the item, it's also something that means a lot to them as well.
Absolutely. When I have a successful sale, you get that good feeling that you did something and it served the purpose, it served a good purpose, and somebody's happy and very relieved that you were able to sell something that they wanted to monetize.
Right. It's literally like win, 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 it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And just one last thing, any special plans to celebrate that 100th year anniversary?
Well, we did it already, basically in 2024. We had like a golf tournament at Norbeck Country Club for a lot of our clients. Couple parties, in our gallery, that type of thing we've done already. And certainly, we've had our share of interviews, and it's everyone I enjoy, every single moment I enjoy, because it's a special moment. I never thought when I started, in this business in 1979 that I would be to this point. You just don't think in terms of where am I going to be 45 years from that point when I graduated.
Of course. It's almost impossible to imagine it,
Yeah.
Well, listen, Mazel Tov. It's a wonderful, wonderful
Thank you.
milestone for the business. I know for you and the family personally, it really is just wonderful. And congratulations to everyone. And
thank you very much.
Genesis in shul yesterday, and when you finish a book of Torah, there's a phrase that's exclaimed by the congregation: "Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek." It means like be strong, and we'll be strengthened together. And just for you and the whole family, strength moving forward, and only good things. Really, only good things.
Thank you very much.
So we have a moment or two. If folks want to get a last chat question in. Mark, you want to go ahead? I see your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to say one thing because Paul won't say it. I've done business with the Cooper family for over 50 years. When I graduated high school, I bought my first house at an auction with my father and Joe. The reason why the Coopers are so successful, and forget Paul, they are the most honest, ethical, moral. It's just when you do business with them, it's just amazing how honest and integrable every part of them are. And it's just that's why he's successful. He jokes about it, but they're just totally in business. You don't hear anything bad. The only person to talk bad about Paul is Barbara. Besides that, it's impeccable.
My wife.
But honestly,
Thanks, Mark. I was waiting for
that's
some
why
comment
they're
that
so
was going to
successful.
embarrass me.
They're a
Thank
very
you.
honorable, integral company.
No, but that, Mark,
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Point well taken. You know, it's the old thing, like you can do well and do right at the same time. And that's what the family's done. And you're exactly right. Um, oh, one last question, Paul, from Patty. She had posted it before. I missed it. She said, will younger people today continue to be interested in older, beautiful things? In other words, let's say you're running, your auctions. Are there younger people who are bidding on items, or is it mostly folks who are a little bit older?
The younger people are bidding on things that are of a contemporary nature or mid-century modern.
Hmm. Okay.
But selling brown furniture, it's just nobody wants brown furniture. They've lost that connection to fine, handmade, traditional brown furniture, mahogany or whatever. They just lost that connection, and they're not going to get it back either. They're just not, because you get the connection by growing up with it and by appreciating it and valuing it. And that's what I want in my house. I grew up with it. I want it in my house, and that's what I have in my house. But as the generations go on, people just lose that connection, and they see what is in the magazines and what the designers are, showing as far as pictures, and that's what they're going to buy. So it's a change. I mean, clothing styles change,
Right.
hairstyles change, furniture changes. So they've lost the appreciation for fine handmade, furniture, especially.
Furniture, yeah. So, Patty, that answers your question a little bit, I think.
Sorry, but that's just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, okay. Paul, I want to thank you on behalf of the Rabbi Mark G. Loeb Center for Adult Education. I want to thank Ellen for her patience and perseverance in getting everything together, as always, and Thomas for monitoring the program tonight. Ellen, did you have a closing word or two?
No, I just was just so happy to see all of you here. It's wonderful to learn together and to be together on a Sunday night or any night. So we look forward to seeing you all at our next My Story. And that one would be with Dr. Diane Orlinsky and Dr. Larry Weiss, who both visited Israel on a mission, different kinds of missions. We look forward to that coming up. And we look forward to you sharing that with us too. And Paul, thank you so much for your wonderful talk tonight. Thrilled to have you here and honored. And Rabbi, thank you. And Thomas, thanks for very much for being our tech person. And all of you stay safe, be well, and come back and learn with us a whole lot.
Thank you. And a shout out to my grandchildren, Ella, Gavin, and Sydney, who are listening right now. So
All right,
Awesome.
Grandpa's a celebrity. Grandpa's a
now
celebrity.
you can go to bed. Okay. It's like now they can go to bed. But thank you, everybody, for
Paul, thanks
Thank
a
you.
million.
tuning in. I appreciate it.
Really.
Good night, everyone. Have a good one.
Good night.
Hey,
It was
everyone.
great, Paul. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks so much.